folks, I know there's a history here. I'd like to get this hearing in today. You know, everybody needs to just focus on the relevant facts, okay? I know there's a history here.
Are you talking up by Sunset Mart? Up the hill by the gas station?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you... All right, who's responsible here?
What's that?
Who's responsible here? Whose house is this?
Yeah, haven't been drinking or anything, right?
No.
Okay, drive careful, okay?
Thank you.
This is what the other group had that ran away.
Oh, really?
They just did shit.
Awesome.
Yeah, those ones kept walking in the car. The other one.
It's truly for the win.
Boom. Again, guys, good morning. Gonna jump right into it. Oh, gotta get a stretch. Check this out. Everybody's been wondering, you know, what could happen to Bethany? What could happen to Dylan? I mean, but they really not call for help, things like that. I was actually Googling this number because I wanted to know who it belonged to. And I came across a 2015 article. It has to do with a woman, 27-year-old female that was found floating in Lake Corleen. And she had been wrapped in a blue tarp and a shower curtain. And she was floating up on top with an arm sticking out of the tarp. And come to find out, it was this woman. So on Monday, the Coonan County Sheriff's Office was called to the Fullers Bay area at the south end of Lake Corleen for a report of a body floating in the water. The dive team and detectives responded and found the body of a young woman floating near the surface. They removed the body and after an autopsy identified her as a 27-year-old Kimberly Sue Vezina. So, but how I came across this is because of this phone number. This was a phone number that had called Jennifer Drake at about 11:38 p.m. the night that her husband was murdered. And then I cross-referenced who Jennifer Drake said she was talking to and giving information to, and she said the name Ken. Well, look at that, Sergeant Ken. Wow. So this is how, in fact, I found this this woman, and she was a drug dealer. She also was a drug addict, and she had just actually got out of jail. Was it the day before? Because she had OD'd on the 15th of October, but she had gotten out of jail on October 14th of 2015, and they were at a house that normally got raided by law enforcement. And when people had woke up that next morning, they found her body in the bathroom, and there were two people that were picked because they had not as much as a criminal background as the other people that were in this house. So there were these two females that were picked to we're going to all wrap this body up, and you guys are going to go put this in an SUV, and you're going to drive it out to the lake, and you're going to go and buy some cement bags, and we're going to go ahead and, you know, tie these cement bags to this body, and we're gonna go put this body in the lake. Okay. Well, they felt the need to rob and burglarize an area, a house that was in this area, and they grabbed a gun and whatever else they ransacked, but they get to go try to do this cement bag of tying this around this body, and they fail epically, and they just end up putting the body in the water and not with any sandbags or cement bags rather. So moving on. But so this is how I came across this, because of this phone number. Okay, when I wanted to Google it, it came back to, this is the person that had called Jennifer Drake, the wife of Brian Drake, the murdered chiropractor. Okay. Now let's take a look at something though, because I continued to read on about this girl, because she was, when I heard a female drug dealer, addict, 27 years old, cute girl. I wanted to read a little bit more about what ended up happening. How did they find even this out, that this, how did this play out? And they were able to find that when they did the autopsy, that her toxicology came back, and they ruled her death, that she overdosed, and then somebody went ahead and, and did what they did. But check this out. Idaho ruled that at first they went ahead and said, when this all played out, that the girl that moved the body, she got 10 years. Okay. For what she did. They appealed it, and they won on their appeal because of they said that she should have been calling the police. And then what she did is she went ahead and she moved, a dead corpse, and, they hit her with, I think, 3 different counts. Well, they won on their appeal. And so I want to show you guys this, because I think it's interesting. Let me pull this up really quick. Okay, here we go. Boom. Okay, so court rules it unconstitutional to charge the woman who dumped friend's body in lake. This came out October 3rd, 2018. Cordeline, a Spokane woman who dumped her friend's dead body into the lake in 2015, cannot be prosecuted for failing to notify police of the woman's death, because doing so would have violated her Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The Idaho Supreme Court has decided. The court affirmed an earlier ruling made by the Idaho 1st District Judge Richard Christensen. Judge Christensen had dismissed the felony charge of failure to notify of a death that had been filed against this resident, Laura Akins. You know me, I Googled the fuck out of all these people. According to court documents, Akins and this other woman, Lacey Drake, what are the odds of these last names? Okay, Drake. You guys see that? Am I the only one that sees this? Brian Drake, Lacey Drake. What are the odds? Okay, that here, Brian Drake's this chiropractor that gets murdered, right? And I want to do some digging on these phone records, right? And so I'm digging, and I come across this, and I'm like, wait a second, Lacey Drake. Who's Lacey Drake? So according to the court documents, Akins, Laura Akins, and Lacey Drake, maybe no connection whatsoever, but transported the body of 27-year-old Kimberly Sue Vezina from a residence in Spokane, Washington to, Coeur d'Alene, to the lake in Idaho on October 15th, 2015. After Kimberly was found dead from an apparent overdose. Okay. The home where Vezina died had been the target of a police raid the month prior and was known to be a frequent gathering place for drug users. The Coeur d'Alene Press reported. Investigators later learned that Vezina, a known drug dealer and addict, went to the home with a meth dealer shortly after she was released from jail on the 14th, so the day before. That night, she overdosed on morphine and amphetamines, and her body was found in the bathroom the following morning. No one in the residence reported, Kimberly's death to the police, mostly due to the fact that many of them had extensive criminal histories. Drake and Atkins had been arrested fewer times, so the rest of the people in the house designated them to dispose of, Kimberly's body. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. How did two females pull this off? Okay, because it's a dead body that's very, very heavy. So just saying. So since they had been arrested fewer times, they were the ones that were picked. So with the assistance of other people in the home, Laura Akins and Lacey Drake wrapped Kimberly's body in a shower curtain and a blue tarp, secured it with nylon rope, and loaded it into the back of a stolen SUV. The women then drove to Akins' relative's home near Fuller's Bay. Would love to know. I'll get more info on that. They were given a bag of cement to weigh the body down, but couldn't figure out how to attach it to the tarp. Instead, they just dumped her body off of the Fuller's landing dock without the cement. Akins and Drake then burglarized a nearby home where they stole tools and a .22 caliber pistol. On November 9th, 2015, fishermen spotted a hand sticking out of a tarp that had floated to the water surface near Fuller's Landing and contacted the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. Atkins was arrested in August of 2016, so like a whole year. And Drake was arrested the following month. Both women were charged for failing to notify police of Kimberly's death. And Drake pleaded guilty to the offense in May, according to the Coeur d'Alene Press. Now, remember, the reason I'm even reading this off is because of Bethany Dillon. Did they fail to report this death? Okay. Here we go. Okay. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison with 5 years fixed, but the judge allowed her to attend a rider program to determine whether she was a good candidate for probation. Atkins pleaded guilty on an unlawful entry offense for her role in the home burglary and was ordered to serve 30 days in jail. Just love to know who they were rolling on to get these deals. 30 days in jail. But her attorneys argued that the felony charge for covering up the death violated Akins' Fifth Amendment rights and that she could not have notified police about the location of the body without also telling them that she had destroyed evidence. Christensen agreed, the judge agreed, and dismissed the charge against her, at which point prosecutors filed an appeal. The problem with this prosecution rests in the information that Akins was at the time required to report, the Supreme Court ruling read. The parties agreed that at a minimum, the language of the law requires reporting of two pieces of information. Number one, the existence of a dead body, and number two, the location of that body. At all times for which the statute was in effect against Akins, the body was either in the rear cargo area of the SUV she occupied or in Lake Coeur d'Alene. The court said, unlike the fishermen who eventually found the body and notified law enforcement, Akins did not have an ability to report her knowledge as to the existence and location of that body without informing law enforcement that she had carried it across the state line in an SUV she occupied and disposed of it in a lake. Akins would have effectively admitted to her commission of the state's charge of destroying evidence if she had reported it. The court document continued. We find it difficult to invent a more substantial hazard of self-incrimination than the one that was actually presented here. The decision read, as the facts of this case are applied, we hold that Akins' prosecution under the statute would violate her Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. So, nothing happened. Nothing happened. I mean, they appealed, they won, end of story. That's what I thought. Until I saw a new article that just came out just a couple days after Brian Kober was arrested, where, let's see. Pull up another article. This is on January 13th of 2023. All right, so January 5th, 2016 was the original report, and then January 13th, 2023. Again, I thought this was all interesting. Detectives in Kootenai County report that Kim Vezina died of combined with what was in her system, the toxicology report, and most likely passed away in Washington. And was transferred to Idaho, where her body was found November 9th. The dive team found her after the fisherman called. But out of the blue, I'm like, okay, well, what's up? Like, this is just it. Detectives have identified persons of interest in her death, but declined to release further information. Her death remains under investigation, and once that investigation is completed, it will be referred to the prosecutor's office for review. I thought she just overdosed. Okay. So then all of a sudden here, how many years later? This was in 2015. Okay. Now in 2023, January, literally just like 5 days after the arrest of Brian Kohberger, this article comes out to talk about a case that people had been tried for, like, you know, the two girls taking her body, moving it, all those things. Now all of a sudden, they create a new article to say that detectives have persons of interest in Kim's death. I thought she just had an overdose, like she overdosed. So don't know what's going on, but that is, you know, 8 years later, this is coming out. So again, all of this even happened because I was looking up a number, or I had come across this. So just throw every single thing in Idaho into the trash. Speaking of trash, I have a question for everybody that watched our part 1 of the debate. I don't care what anybody says about Brian Kohberger. Nobody has him on camera doing this. If the police were watching Brian Kohberger run around and put trash in his neighbor's trash bins, okay, then why wouldn't the police go and get that trash, okay? Why would you be taking trash from his parents' home, all right? You'd be taking the trash from his parents' home. If you witness him doing that to his neighbors, you would take their trash, okay? At the end of the day, how are you not able to come across any possible samples that actually have his DNA on it? You know, I don't care if you're using gloves to separate. What about your mouth? Like, if you were to eat something, it's just wild, right? Anyways, so, but again, that's just what people were saying over there. I want to see some documentation of this. But if you're seriously watching and witnessing Brian take his own trash and put it in neighbor's trash, then why wouldn't that be the trash that you went and got and then went and got tested, okay, against the sheath, your profile? Come on now. Let's all use our fucking brains a little bit. I know it's early in the morning, but we're going to use our brains just a little bit. So, but at the very end of the day, his family was all there. So his mom, his dad, if this is the time that you got this DNA, which I don't believe that's when, his sister. So when you're going to take the trash that you're like taking to go get it tested, okay, what items did you test? Like, wouldn't his sisters be on stuff? Wouldn't his mom? You know, obviously you say his dad, but how would you know what to grab that was his dad's versus his mom's versus his sister's? You would never know. You would not know who drank from this or who touched this unless you are literally, you got cameras up in that house, like totally spying on like the house, but you're not going to know who touched what. So therefore you're going to take the whole trash bag, you know, and throw it over your back like Santa Claus, and then jump into your paddy wagon, Pennsylvania State Police vehicle, and go off. I was laughing so hard. Lana is so quick calling out that person in chat. It is crazy when you hear their whole narrative. Makes no sense. Oh yeah, Muffy was licking on my titties morning and night over here. And now all she does is run around and talk ridiculous shit. So I thought I'd give her a nice special shout out. Go embarrass yourself somewhere else. So, anyways, but everything surrounding that, then you like, how did you get the DNA? How did you get the trash on over to the lab? We went to FedEx and we just stuffed it in the biggest FedEx box we could find, and we totally just shipped it like FedEx. No, actually, we used the FBI plane and we took it. You know, and then the biggest, baddest debate and the biggest point that no one's ever going to be able to say anything else other than this point is you have the law enforcement, you know, detectives, agencies saying that, and the prosecutor saying, hey, the FBI just gave us a tip. You know what I mean? It was like sent in like any other tip. Okay. All right. Perfect. So that's what you're saying. Guess what that means? That means that tips are part of discovery. And through the discovery process, you vet your tips. Okay? So that means that when the tip would have come through, like, here's Brian Kohlberger's name, we get to then vet that, which means, oh, it came from the FBI. How did you get this? You just, went and saw a medium and they told you Brian Kohlberger? No, we did IgG. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and take that information. Because I said it last night, not a single person that was putting in tips through any tip line, they didn't have crime scene DNA to help with their submitting of a tip. Okay? No. But if you want to claim that all it was a tip, well, then guess what? You are subject to discovery on that tip, period. Because it'd be no different than if, JLR calls in a tip because he's running around in his car and, doing whatever. It's the same thing. But yeah, you don't get to just say, oh, well, this tip, guess what? Nope, you can't do that with this tip. That's just not. Sorry, guys, this is not how it works. So with that said, there's no and I truly don't understand how he doesn't understand that this is, you're not getting Brian's DNA without arresting him. Okay. So you obtained his DNA to then compare it to the DNA on the sheath. How did you get it? How did you get it? Did you violate anybody's rights to do that? And I just don't think he's understanding that. You don't have Brian's DNA without him being arrested. Now, was it a lawful arrest? Did they truly have probable cause to arrest him? And where's that coming from? I, for the life of me, can't understand why they just couldn't obtain his DNA. We all agree with you on trash. New Orleans ladies are a trash lady. Personalized trash bags. Like, what? I want to talk about the timing of all of that. And I want to know, Daniel's hellbent said that this happened on December 19th. Not like a little range, but that boom, no, the IgG came back on December 19th. Where are you getting that information from? That's not, that would be your opinion. Okay. That's not fact. And I personally believe that it would be way before then, because you geared your whole entire investigation around making your probable cause. Because normally what you're going to have is, if you're going and you're doing things and you're making notes and typing stuff up as you go, that's interesting that you would do it that way. That's exactly what they did with Daniel Moore, the doctor, the chiropractor. Okay. But they started putting that and piecing that all together against Daniel Moore in May to then do everything against him in August. Okay. So think of middle of May, end of August. It's the same amount of weeks. Okay. That if you look at November 12th, 13th to, the end of, what was it? End of December. You just don't. And I think he said it best on a show. He said, you have to go through all these other people. Yeah, Hoodie Guy. Yeah, Adam. Yeah, anybody that, Xana knows. Yep, all the Sigma Chi's. Yep, Jack D. Yep, Maddie's angle. Yep, but here, none of. If you would get and exhaust yourself through all of that, how long do you think that would take you? Well, no, just everybody was just submitting DNA in their phone, so, and you're running search warrants for like everyone's, money. Money didn't lead you back to Brian Kohlberger. In fact, nothing that you did search warrant wise brought you back to Brian Kohlberger. Think about that. Not one search warrant that you did out of the 66 that we saw. Which one was for Brian Kohlberger or anything to do with Brian Kohlberger? Nothing. So again, when did you come up with the name Brian Kohlberger? And there are arguments that say that they did not know that Brian Kohlberger existed until December 19th. Well, WSU campus and police knew his name November 29th when they turned it over because they found his vehicle. So November 29th, but you're not going to say they knew about Brian Kohlberger and wasn't doing. Just the facts don't support that. So I think this case was worked backwards. Yes, 100. Because from the beginning, we always thought that there was a confidential informant that in some capacity said, listen, here's the name. You can't use me though. And what we always thought it was the FBI working a different case and this is going to take down other things? They've been working on something for so long. They can't ruin that. And guess what? It's still that. That is the reason. The FBI cannot let out of the bag that loophole and that it was used and the terms of service had been, people are breaking that. Like, you don't think that you're giving up your DNA. And it's supposed to be opted out of law enforcement. Well, here for years, since 2018, they've been using your DNA to make these trees to locate things, and again, it's unethical. It's a violation of your privacy. But we're all being labeled as confidential informants. That's what they want this case, that we're being labeled as confidential informants. So in the beginning, everything that we said was correct. And that here, this is the name, but you cannot go about it this way. You have to find a different way. But this is who we think that you should look at. And the only way that you would have that on IGG is if there was hella matches right away with meaning that his family took those tests and were in the system. Otherwise, it's going to take you a minute. So, show me your trash, New Orleans lady. That is called corruption. Yeah, and then, but see, even then after the fact, how do we know that they didn't? They're like, okay, here we'll just go ahead and blame it on that we got it this way through IgG, but really we didn't. You know what I mean? But we can go ahead and say that to cover maybe something else up. But we can go ahead and say it this way. We don't know. Why did they go and get Brian Kohlberger's parents' trash to begin with? I don't fucking know. Why would that ever be needed? And because we're going to sit here and all say to each other that they couldn't get his DNA any other way because he just wore gloves all the time. Interesting. Well, maybe they needed his parents' DNA or his sister's DNA so they could put it somewhere. So that when they put his shit somewhere, it would test, and hit as a match. I'm just saying, is that possible? Well, fuck. Yeah, I don't know why the FBI is just walking around with Brian Kohlberger's fucking DNA. I'd be pissed if somebody was walking around with my DNA. Thanks, Jacqueline. Man, I just love how your brain works. And then how do you explain how how do you explain how okay, great, we went trash surfing, okay? And we're just gonna pick out items that we think his daddy used versus, but yeah, we grab like, man stuff. Well, we found a condom, so we used that. No, you would just take the bag. I mean, I wouldn't be. But how do you get it there? How are you getting it to wherever the fuck you're shipping it? Are you driving it? Are you flying it? Are you just testing it in Pennsylvania? Or are you like getting like a profile in Pennsylvania and then and then when I found out how long it takes to upload, so if you're law enforcement and you're okay, we're going to go ahead and take Brian Kober's DNA that we have here and upload it as a, your law officer, law enforcement, it's going to take like 7 to 10 days to upload that. Versus if you're just a consumer like me or you, we can upload ours and it'd be like, I don't know, a day, max 2. Versus law enforcement, when you upload, 7 to 10, and you have to pay like, $700 or. So think about all of that. There's paper trails of all of this. It's the digital world, guys. We don't want the names of the people that you went ahead and you said made this tree up, okay? I'm only curious. I just want emails and the dates. I want the fucking date that the FBI submitted the name Brian Kober. That's what I want. Give me that date and I'll tell you whatever the fuck you need to know. What was the date that was turned in? The timing of the DNA tests. Wow, trash is, yeah. Yes. And it was used. They needed that. Payne put everything to do with talking about the trash and getting the trash. And then that is in the probable cause to arrest Brian Kober, which then led you to get his actual DNA. That last paragraph is put in Payne's probable cause. And what he said he did. Or that they did. But that's in nowhere else. That's not with Pennsylvania to search his parents' house, to search the car. That wasn't put in there. And then to search his apartment. That part wasn't put in there. In fact, you have fucking Don Daniels running down the street saying, hold up. No. You know what? Go ahead and just do this without this. Hold it back. We just in case something's wrong with this. Like, wait, what? What would be wrong with it? Who the hell would even say that? Dawn Daniels is a cheater, okay? She used to use the Chase credit card to go with her friends to Hooters in the department, okay? They cheated their asses off. So why is Dawn Daniels waving down the world to say, no, judge, you know what? Leave this part off just in case something's wrong with anything to do with the obtaining and running of the DNA. Well, I don't know what says you're guilty without saying you're guilty right there. I mean, you know what? God bless Dawn Daniels. Because I'm telling you, it wasn't her that, she was told this. This woman, okay, was told this. She wasn't in Pennsylvania. She wasn't at the lab. Somebody told her this. So she's, telling this to the judge because somebody told her this. Well, who's filling Dawn Daniels in to the point of that, magnitude? Because what? They were scared of what? Fucking everything in that apartment's going to get tossed. Right? Well, so if they were scared of that, and so they left it off, right? Then my question goes back onto Daniel then is, well, why do you think Payne didn't take it off? Because they weren't getting the fucking arrest probable cause warrant for him without a DNA match if you have DNA. I believe that they tried and they attempted to get it and they couldn't get it. And I believe Megan was like, come back when you can match that DNA. Then I suggest, Mr. Payne, you go and get your DNA. And that's why it's on that one and that one only. Take out the DNA and you have zero evidence to show BK was at that house. Zero. Yeah. Well, And to be so fucking technical too, that touch DNA on that sheath, no offense, does not even put Brian Kohlberger in that motherfucking house. It's touch DNA. Okay. I want to know how new that what it came from Amazon. Well, we're about to find out because I ordered my cell phone off of Amazon. And I'm going to drive around my car for 20 minutes, then make some more loop-de-loops, have it on my belt loop. You know, I'm going to then, when do you think I'm going to put my gloves on? So if I'm a badass criminal, I'm going to wipe down my sheath, everything off of it, put my gloves on. And then I'm going to handle my sheath, clip it on my belt, go in my car, drive around. Then I'm going to get out of my car. Then I'm going to go into my friend's house. I'm going to reenact some stuff, taking out the sheath or taking out the knife from the sheath. Okay, so I have my knife. And then what the hell? Scott Roeder said he's got my mannequins waiting for me. I'm just curious about how bloody I would be. I'm curious about a lot of things. But the biggest thing I'm curious is when it's all said and done and I ship my sheath I'm going to call up that Vargas woman and say, hey, here, see what's on the sheath. Because I'm just curious. I just want to know whatever I would have come in contact with when I'm sitting in my car and the sheath's on my belt. And I'm going into a foreign place, my friends, and I'm going to go into 2 different rooms. I'm going to walk through his living room, out a slider door. I'm going to open up a slider, close a slider. I'm going to try to replicate some stuff, but I just want to see what's going to be on that sheath. All right. And I'm letting the sheath lay for about, 9 to 12 hours on his spare bedroom's sheets, letting it just sit there, lay there. I don't know. And then shipping it off, see what's on there. Because I'm just curious what would be on there. New Orleans lady asked me, can you please do a demonstration? I said, sure, we'll do it. So, as I was telling you guys, the reason I brought up this whole Kim lady was because I was looking up these phone numbers from anybody who would call or who would get phone calls in the Jennifer Drake saga, Brian Drake, Daniel Moore, the chiropractors, and the same detectives that work basically that case that were working the Idaho4 case. And did they just get tunnel vision? Did they purposely bury evidence? Were they lying? Did they have any reason, to do things differently with this case? And that's how I came across this Kim. Now, if you guys have watched the Murdoch murder, the actual trial, and they had the forensic phone guy on the stand, that was my favorite part of the trial in terms of learning experience for me. So I want to show you guys something, and I want you guys to tell me what you think about something. Let's see. Have you ever seen this before? So Okay. I want you guys to take a look at something. Those of you guys have been following along, because it's going to matter for, I believe, like even the Idaho case. The Jennifer Drake phone call that she had with her husband that started at 7:17 and it lasted 9 minutes and 15 seconds. It was an outgoing call that Dr. Drake placed to, Jennifer allegedly, and it lasted 9 minutes and 15 seconds. And Jennifer said that, it was like the last 15 seconds of that call, that's when he was like, I had just been shot or hit, whatever the hell he said. But take a look at this. Right here. And right here. And right here. Okay. Now, Jennifer says that she tried to call him back. All right. And notice how it's 000 000. These are missed calls, right? So I went ahead and I compared that to the, like if she was to make a call, what it would say. And $732. Okay. So his comes back like that. See how it's 3 seconds? So I had the pleasure of talking with a forensic expert that my good boy Scott Roeder knows. Okay. And I said, I believe that after that 9 minute and 15 second alleged phone call, whatever, if it was a phone call, if they just let it like run, but I believe that his phone, that phone that he was using, was then immediately either put into airplane mode or it was turned off. Okay. Because when Jennifer tried to recall at 7:32, the reason it was 3 seconds is because voicemail picked up. Okay. And then, she hung up after voicemail had just picked up, what everybody does when your voicemail picks up after it rings. It doesn't keep ringing and ringing and ringing. It usually rings once, sometimes not even once. It goes straight to voicemail and then you hang up. Okay. Hence her 3 seconds. But I said, but he has 000. And the reason that it's coming up as a missed call is because if you're doing a Cellbrite dump of 2 phones, okay, it's totally different than just using your phone records. Phone records wouldn't show a missed call, okay, if your phone's not on. If you're going based off of your phone records, it's not going to show that you have a missed call when your phone is off, okay? So if you're going to sit here and tell me that Brian Drake decided not to call 911 to help himself, okay, but instead, after the 9 minutes and 15 second phone conversation, he then immediately shuts off his phone to either go into airplane mode or to be completely turned off while he's unconscious. Now, take a look. $732, $748, $749, $845. So these are all miss 000. Okay. Ready? Now explain this to me. His phone's off. Laying there, Dr. Drake's phone's laying there next to his body. Right? But instead of just being turned on, because like that would be like your phone would be on. Like if you're dead, how did you shut your phone off? How did you turn it into airplane mode, right? unless somebody did that for you because they were there and they staged this whole fucking thing, right? But I'm going to go one step further for you. Ready? How in the world do the text messages show red, 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 and then unread? 816 and 817. How could you read those? Your 952 ones unread. The rest of the ones that you've ever had have been unread. How is all of that possible if your phone's off? Alive, look at 816, 817. That phone should just be laying right next to his head, never touched. I had to wait till, the crime scene was already roped off at 7:45 p.m., right? So what's this? How could you read a text message? How's that possible? Oh. That's what you call boom. This is what you call stage motherfucking boom. Red, red. How are those red at 816 and 817? So again, somebody had to turn it off, turn it back on, all before this time frame, because at this time frame and everything past, it's all unread. But his phone isn't registering any of the 7. So let me go back to, let's see, any of those phone calls that were coming through. They were all coming back as misses with all zeros. So 732, 748, 749, 845. 0000. And that's what I was told by a forensic, with that the way that this would be interpreted is that this phone was off or in airplane mode when this was going on. And that would be a command that happened, between right after this call and that. So who shut his phone off or who turned it in airplane mode? So between 7:26 and 7:32. And then at some point for that 8:16 and 8:17 text messages to be read, somebody had to obviously turn on the phone, look at those messages, and then turn the phone back off. So now let me ask you this. You would think that detectives that had all this information in front of them, the same detectives that are working the Brian Kohlberger Idaho4 case, they have all this shit. These are the same detectives that had this, would have known this, and just completely looked the other way. And people want to ask me why I feel the way that I feel. Well, it's not because I feel that way. It's because I can prove their past actions in other cases. And that's why I went so hard for the Dr. Drake, Dr. Moore case, because I saw who was part of the case. The same name came up that Ann Taylor wanted records on. So, but that's going to close it out. Why was the one unread? Because they're unread if there had never been, if you put your phone in airplane mode or you have your phone off, when you sell, write, dump, whatever, it's going to just show you whatever you go to that point of when you're running a sell, write, dump on your phone, it was never read. That means it was never opened. That means it never went to the phase of turning on and then physically going to your text messages and then, reading it. So clicking on it and then reading it. Whereas his 8:16 and 8:17 one on the same day that he was, allegedly murdered, laying there dead at 7:40 when the cops were there, 7:45, allegedly when the cops were there. This is what they want to claim, mind you. then who touched his phone and did whatever with his phone between 7:40 and 8:17? Or was his phone never there yet? I don't know. All I know is that they some cheaters and some liars, because digital evidence doesn't lie, right? I'm starting to think one of those cops was smashed in the now millionaire widow. What's up there, Frankie? The phone was laying next to his body, right next to his head. But the better question is that you can't tell me that a guy, if this is truly how this played out, would have gotten shot and then decided that I think it's best that I shut my phone off, right? No. Or let me put my phone in airplane mode. No, you would try to make a phone call to save your own life, like call 911. But that's not what happened. Between 7:27 p.m. and 7:32, there was a command done on his phone, which was either to shut it off or they put it in airplane mode. I do believe that they shut it off, personally. And then between 7:31 p.m. and 9:51 p.m., between that time frame, somebody then again had turned on the phone and went and looked at those two text messages, and then again was able to shut it off, and all that had happened before the 9:52 text message. But it's also happening because there's other calls that are coming through. So who's ever doing this is turning it on, looking, turning it off, shutting it off, doing that. But that was being done at times that they knew that nobody was calling the phone, because there were calls that were coming through. One was at 7:48, one was at 7:49, one was at 8:45, which was the wife. And then she called his work one cell phone at 8:46. So but all of this matters, in my opinion, because of this Idaho4 case. We have 4 victims, 2 surviving roommates. That means there's 6 phones. And you're going to have to go through all these phones and compare and look at this data. Okay? If you really want to get a true idea of what took place that night, you want to look at their cell phones, right? And then is there any health data on it? Like, was anybody walking with the phone? Their phones. What time was the phone taking steps? Things like that. Could she have been logged in to his Apple ID from home and erased it remotely? Nothing was erased that I know of. Again, it wasn't about being erased. That has nothing to do with it. I'm showing how something was read and when it was read and when it would have been read and during the time frame that it was, read. But you can't turn off a phone and turn back on a phone. Okay, you can't do that from a remote. You can't go to your Apple ID. And they didn't have Apple. These were Androids. But you can't do you can't make your phone do a command and shut it off. You can't make your phone do a command and putting it in airplane mode. Those are physical commands that you have to do with your phone. So no, somebody physically did that. But if an honest detective looked at the Drake case, his wife would be arrested, right? Right? And he can't tell me that a cop knows, they know this, but that's where people come from higher up and say, you need to bury this. Okay, so then bury it, but that doesn't mean go frame somebody. You know what I'm saying? So why can't Dr. Drake's case just not have been solved? Why would you go and ruin a man's life? Now that's some fucked up shit. But that is why it's like the same type of thing with the Brian Kohlberger case. If you don't want the girls' murders and Ethan's murders to be solved, okay, that's on you. Okay. Hey, the truth really can't come out. We need to bury it. Well, what they're notorious, though, for how they bury things is they frame people. Okay. In this case is that perfect example. And it's the same fucking people that are doing both cases. And so again, if you didn't want to have the Idaho4 case ever solved, you know what? That's on you. But when you want to go and frame somebody like a Dr. Moore, so that's where and how I can compare what type of work product people do, because they've done it before. Because whether or not you signed your name to that affidavit, Gary Tolson, you knew everything that was put onto that affidavit. And you would then be like, no, I was there for those. Like, I looked at the same material. This isn't the stuff that I gave him, and I want to speak out on that. You know, but you're not going to see that type of stuff. Why? Because your job's on the line. Because you have to feed your family. Or because you're just doing it right along with them. But if you want to bury things because it can't come out, the real truth, fine. Live with yourself, whatever. But you want to go framing innocent people, though, that's just fucking crazy. Because it could happen to any of us. Any of us. NT of us. And that's, I think, you know, the reoccurring theme lately is, you know, all these unsolved murders. Everybody remember all these unsolved murders. Well, now they don't want these unsolved murders. So let's just go solve them by doing what? Framing people. Come on. Karen Reed was fucking framed. Dr. Daniel Moore, framed. Again, these are it's just crazy. So if you don't see something and you stand up for it, like now, what are you going to wait till it happens to you? And then you want people to come and stand up for you and you're like, whatever. Like they can get themselves out of something. People, we have platforms we can use. We have voices. We're the ones that employ people. Hello. Okay. That's why we get to know what these people go out and do with their jobs, because we're paying for them to go and be doing their jobs. Right? Because trust me, there's a hell of a lot of good police officers out there. But isn't it pretty shitty that the good ones aren't the ones that get to climb the ladder the quickest? It's the fucking shitty ones that climb the ladder the fastest. You know why? Because they're willing to get their fucking hands dirty. They're willing to be people's bitches. That's why. It's like no different in any type of job. But that's the reality of it. Richard Allen framed. Yep. All these high profile cases. Karen Reed, Richard Allen. They wouldn't even put Brian Drake's case out there. Nobody wanted, hey, leave it alone. Don't give it any media attention. Why? Because if you get because the internet's a double-edged sword. You get people like me and all of you guys that watch all this stuff and start digging in and looking at stuff. And then you get families that want to like reach out and say, hey, will you help us? Like, the mainstream media won't come to our house and hear our side of the story. Can you put it out there? That's so I kept saying to myself, why isn't there any coverage of this Brian Drake murder? Oh yeah, we know all about Bieber. So anyways, that's going to wrap it up though. You guys are great. Love you all. Keep being amazing, and do me a favor on your way out. You have an opinion on the live, make yourself known. Thumbs it up, thumbs it down, share it, but run this back and go look at those what I was showing you guys, and this is undisputable evidence. Okay, undisputable evidence that shows 100 corruption. Until next time. Disc that I was given to. So there was 2 different discs. Okay? They all knew about it.
We're not here to talk about the alcohol stuff, okay?
Okay, yeah.
But this is the second noise complaint we've had here tonight within 2 hours.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Is this your place?
Yeah.
Perfect. You know why we're here?
I see noise.
Noise, yeah.
Yeah.
Big speaker right there.
Yeah.
Nothing against having a party. Once neighbors start calling in, then we have an issue.
Like brains, and like if you need a lot of brains, you're gonna be in trouble.